really taking the time for that self-assessment is going to be really key for you to figure out what those goals are and what your values are.
And we can figure out through that like what we genuinely want for our career. And when we type out those career goals, let's ask ourselves, what do you enjoy most in your work? Then think about careers that align with what you like doing. Welcome back, career advancers. I'm Jack. This is Kara from Optimized Career Solutions, and we're back with another episode of the Career Advancement Academy. Last week, we talked about how to enhance your skills in the current job market through upskilling. But today, we're taking a completely different shift, and today we're going to be talking about how to know if you're in a burnout cycle. Kara, what's today's title?
Today, for episode 38, we're talking about burnout or misalignment. Recharge your career and regain fulfillment. So, if you are feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit exhausted, maybe a little bit more than that, you might be in a burnout cycle. And as someone who has been in a total burnout twice in her life that has landed her in the hospital, this is something that's really important to Jack and I, as someone, like I said, who's been through burnout, and as Jack has been my partner who has supported me through burnout. It's really important and it's something that we care about a lot. And we've noticed and we've supported executives and clients through burnout and leaving a toxic work environment that may have caused burnout, healing some of those limiting beliefs that maybe they were sitting with or carrying with them, and going into a dream job and executing a job search in order to be in a career alignment, right? Where they were previously misaligned. And so if this is something that you're struggling with, where you're just feeling burnt out or maybe misaligned in your job and in your career, and you're figuring there's got to be a different way, right? This is just not the life or the career that I want. I'm really, really glad that you're listening or watching on YouTube right now.
I think it's
So
important
go ahead.
to kind of go over what burnout is for those who might not necessarily understand the ins and outs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. So, burnout is really the emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. That sounds so like, well, everyone's burnt out, right? Like,
I think we all got a dose after 2020, right?
yeah, I mean, I feel like pandemic time, right? We've still been kind of dealing with it. I still hear about it. And excessive and prolonged stress is just the human experience, right? But the real problem with burnout is when you're in that survival mode and you are constantly dealing with it and you have chronic fatigue, you're starting to feel detached from life or your career, and you're starting to really feel ineffective. And this is becoming prolonged. You're not getting any rest. I'm not talking about getting a vacation, but you're just not getting that self care, that sleep. You're not ending that survival cycle, and it's becoming a prolonged situation, right? And it can really become a really draining experience, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. Like I said, some of those symptoms could be chronic fatigue. You can start to become really cynical. Your productivity and efficacy can really start reducing, and it's really a hard time to be in. A lot of those physical symptoms can start creeping up too.
Do you think that sometimes we can end up in burnout just by instead of instead of actually having it being our situation, do you think it can come on in other ways that others might not necessarily recognize?
I think that burnout can come on from a lot of different reasons, right? So we can be in a misaligned career, right? Where we're working really hard and we're in that chronic stress cycle because we're working at a job that is not leveraging our strengths. We're constantly being criticized and we're constantly feeling like we're not effective and we're not productive. It's almost, I'm getting the visual of working on like a hamster wheel, right? We're just continually going and we're not getting anywhere. But it can also be you can get burnt out by not healing some of our trauma, right? So if you're in a survival mode or you have experienced a lot of trauma and not processed through some of that, and then you continue to move about life and you're constantly in that survival or adrenaline cycle that just has you in this mode of, I just got to get through this day. I just got to get through this day. And you're just continuing to just get through the day and not actually enjoying life or getting any fulfillment out of life, joy, or any of that. That can perpetuate a burnout cycle too, because that's just not sustainable either. There are some ways that we put ourselves into a burnout cycle when everything seems to be okay, right? Where and that can come from limiting beliefs, right? Hey, I was raised, this is an example, I was raised where we can't ask for help. We can't, I got to do on my own. I got to be independent. And now you're kind of, because of your limiting beliefs, in a situation where there are people around you that are wanting to help you out, that are wanting to take the load off, but you're putting more and more on your plate and you're burning out and you end up with potentially health problems because of that when there was a preventable situation before it got to that point, right? So there's a couple of ways that you can get into a burnout cycle, and those are a couple of ways that I just mentioned.
That's interesting that you brought that up because you don't necessarily hear about burnout being talked about from the professional side.
I feel like
However,
we do talk about burnout from the professional side a lot.
well, we do,
Yeah.
but I feel that when you hear about burnout in society or in on LinkedIn, so to speak, it tends to be from the professional state.
Mhm.
But we tend to not necessarily realize that these lines get blurred so fast and that we can very quickly take something that happened on the professional side and carry it over to the
Mm.
personal, or vice versa if we're not careful, right? Like think of maybe family member going through a specific hardship and you're supporting them. Maybe you're pulling double duty to kind of be that caretaker, and it's potentially causing you to slowly burn out on the personal side, which is now kind of bleeding over to the professional side. So it's kind of a give or take that can happen on either side there.
Mhm. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, burnout is truly the emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. And so at the end of the day, stress can come from anywhere, right? And so you can think of a mother who's doesn't have a potential career in the traditional sense and maybe is a stay-at-home mother and is not getting any help from a partner, is consistently getting burnt out, is has that emotional stress because she's not getting help, she feels alone, etc. Mentally stressed because she's not getting mentally stimulated by having adult conversation and is physically exhausted because she's just not sleeping, right? That is a perfect recipe for a burnout situation. In the professional sense, which is what we typically talk about, that emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion comes from overworking, getting too much on your plate, feeling like you are not valued. That's the emotional part. And that mentally feeling like constantly that imposter syndrome, right? Feeling like either I'm not being mentally stimulated when it comes to using my strengths, or I'm mentally feeling like I'm not being a part of the team or valued correctly, or there's work dynamics at play, et cetera. So burnout truly can come from a lot of different ways, right? And so the reason why we want to bring this up is because if you're not taking care of yourself, and if you find yourself in this burnout cycle from any different way, right? From suffering trauma, from not sleeping, from mental health, from your career, from your personal life, it is going to perpetuate issues mentally, emotionally, and physically because your body is not meant to sustain these levels of stress at a long period, extended period, right? And what we want to talk about in this sense is the professional, right? And one of the reasons why a lot of professionals have burnout is from that career mismatch. And what a career mismatch is a fundamental disconnect between your job and your career aspirations and your values. And burnout is that state of exhaustion, and career mismatch is a gap showing where the change needs to be. And a lot of times that career mismatch and burnout go hand in hand. So if, for instance, you are, I'm going to just use the most wild example here, but if you have this value and this aspiration to be creative and you want to just create beautiful things and you would love to be able to help a company reach its target audience by creating beautiful things, but you're stuck in an accounting role, right, where you're looking at numbers every day, you're going to feel burnt out and you're going to feel that chronic fatigue. You're going to feel cynical. You're going to feel like you're not valuable because you have that mismatch where you value creativity, you value being part of a team that's making an impact, and yet you're stuck looking at numbers all the time. So that misalignment, that lack of fulfillment, that continual dissatisfaction with the work itself is going to perpetuate that mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion because you're just not aligned in the right job for you.
That's interesting, Kara, because as you were talking, I happened to see a study here by Gallup that really talked about burned out employees. They're 63% more likely to take a sick day and 2.6 times more likely to be actively job searching. What do you think about that?
Well, it's true, right? And so this is really speaking to a bigger problem, right? So when employees are feeling burnt out, they don't want to go back into the situation that's burning them out, right? So they are 63% more likely to take a sick day. They're 2.6 times more likely to be seeking a different job. And honestly, good for them to be in a job search. If you are misaligned, if that's a real big cause for your burnout, absolutely, it should be incumbent upon you to go out and go find a job where you are aligned. I think that that's a fantastic thing because of the fact that you're in a situation where you're burning out, you're constantly needing sick days, it's costing you your this is going to sound dramatic, but it's costing you your life, right? And not in a I'm going to die, but it can get that way, but it's costing you, you know, time. It's making you feel like you need to take days off in order to rest and recuperate. It's costing your health, your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health. And it's costing your employer, right? Your employer is now having to pay sick time. It's having a decrease in productivity, and it's a lose lose situation all around, right? However, when employees are engaged and they are at companies that value them, where they feel valued, their productivity soars, they're engaged at work, they feel part of a team, they're excited to make an impact at that company, that's a win-win all around, right? Where you feel excited to go into work and your sick days or your PTO days are actually used for things that you enjoy in life, like a kid's performance or soccer, or you being able to take a day or a vacation to actually enjoy your life, right? That's way more fulfilling than having to recuperate from your life, you know?
I completely agree because I've been there. I've been in a job where you call out because you can't do today. You just
Yeah.
can't do it. And I think that's really what we're getting at is that there are a lot of and increasingly higher percentages of professionals are getting to this point where they just can't continue down this path anymore. So
Mhm.
that's why this is such an important topic, and I'm really glad we're talking about it today. But if we are kind of wanting to address it, right? If we're wanting to say, all right, I recognize I'm feeling this way. I mean, Kara, you've experienced this. How do you go about addressing burnout?
Yeah. So here are some practical steps to address burnout, right? If it's getting to this point, I highly recommend discussing your burnout with someone that can get you support, right? So go to your HR team, talk to them about the fact that you're feeling burnt out and you need support, right? A lot of times your HR team might have solutions like adjusting your workload, creating a flexible schedule, or even having an EAP support, an employee advisory program. I think that's what it stands for, where you actually can get free resources, free calls with a health professional in order to help set you up with a plan to help recover from your burnout, right? So a lot of times employees don't know about all of the resources that your company has to offer until you're asking about them. And when you go to your HR team, this is a really great way for you to find out what resources they have. Even if you need to take FMLA or short term disability to take some time off, this is all things that you're able to potentially have depending on your company and the resources that they have. The second thing is to really prioritize your health, right? So you hear this everywhere. It's because it's important, right? And I tell this all to people all the time, right? Especially women. Women are typically more likely to burn out because of the fact that there's this society pressure to feel like they need to take everything on or can't ask for help or etc. But the problem is that you're not able to do anything if you're not there, right? So prioritizing your health, focusing on your sleep, your exercise, your nutrition, your mental health, mindfulness, therapy, all of those things, and putting yourself first is a great way to make sure that you're able to help others. And then finally is taking a break, right? Sometimes you need that reset. This might be taking some time off, that FMLA or short term disability, right? Whatever you have available, a short vacation, a longer sabbatical, whatever it is that really can help you recuperate and fill up your energy in order to help heal some of that burnout. The other things that I would recommend is to seek and get a support team involved, mental health professionals, physical health professionals. If you are experiencing any physical detriment, get a support team of a support partner. If you're married or you're seeing someone, or some friends that understand so that they can hold you accountable to put you first when it comes to healing your burnout.
I think that was really great advice, Kara. I know for myself that whenever I felt overwhelmed, it's been so good to have those tools and resources, especially us gentlemen, we don't tend to leverage those quite as much as our female counterparts to talk to a professional and to talk to a support system about how you're feeling, what you're dealing with. It can significantly lessen the feelings that we're dealing with and also give us that important roadmap to just overcome what we're dealing with to get to another place. I really appreciate you bringing that up. Because we don't talk about it enough from the male perspective. But overall, as a society, I think we minimize the importance of getting that professional help to better ourselves, and it's very, very important. You've got a video coming out tomorrow, right? Going a little bit more on this. You want to tell me more?
I do. I have a video coming out on our Optimized Career Solutions YouTube channel that talks a little bit about my story of burnout. It talks a little bit about some more practical steps to recover from burnout. And it's important. It's really important because a lot of times, and something that happened to me when I was suffering from burnout, is that it snuck up on me. I really I really felt like I could do it all. I felt like I was strong enough. I've suffered worse than this. It's fine. Like I got it. Just another day, or I can do it. And there was also a little bit of that sense of pride too when it came to working those 12 to 16-hour days, working on the weekends, working on my sick days. Like I got this. Like they can't do it without me. And till they couldn't do it without me because I was in the hospital. And that was really, really scary for me. And I don't want anyone else to find themselves in that situation. So we do go over some additional things in that YouTube video tomorrow. I highly recommend checking it out, subscribing to the Optimized Career Solutions YouTube channel. But one of the big things that I want to talk about now is identifying some ways to deal with a career mismatch because truly for me one of the first ways that I burnt out twice, once in my corporate career and once in my business actually. And I didn't learn the lessons the first time, but the first time that I burnt out was actually due to a career mismatch. I had landed my dream job in human resources. It was the best job out there, best boss. It was fantastic. I was making such an impact. I was utilizing my skills. It was amazing. And after a really long time, few years, things changed. The leadership at the company changed. The role changed. My department changed. we lost a whole bunch of people. I was taking on extra stuff. And I realized that what once was the dream job, the ideal job, became a mismatch. And I didn't realize until it was too late. And so I really want to just go over some ways that people can start addressing a career mismatch before it is too late. Jack, do you want to go over some ways to do that?
Yeah, I think really the first one, it's a self-assessment. If we take the time for introspection, we can find out what our core values are, we can find out what our goals are, and we can figure out through that like what we genuinely want for our career. And when we type out those career goals, let's ask ourselves, what do you enjoy most in your work? Then think about careers that align with what you like doing. Am I on the right track here, Kara?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's important to take the time to figure out outside of work, right? Do this on a weekend, do this on a night out, what your core goals are, what your core values are, what you really want out of your life. And a good way to do this is to really, close your eyes, really think about yourself 5 to 10 years in the future. Where do you see yourself? What type of role do you see yourself doing? What type of company do you see yourself at? Research the type of jobs that are out there, right? What types of companies are out there, and really visualize yourself. And we have videos on and podcast episodes on visualization and how important it is. But take the time and visualize yourself. What type of company are you in? What type of job are you in? And write down what are the types of duties, projects you're working on, tasks you're assigned, team you're working on. And then take a look at what you've dreamed of and take a look at what you're doing right now. Is what you're doing on the path to get you there? Of course, 10 years from now, that job is going to be different than what you're doing now. Hopefully, it's on the ladder up, right? Or on the same path. But if you want to be a senior graphic designer and you're in a junior accountant role, those are on two different paths, right? And so, really taking the time for that self assessment is going to be really key for you to figure out what those goals are and what your values are. What's the next step after we do that?
Well, now that we've kind of aligned that, now we can identify what the gap is. You kind of alluded to it, where we know where we want to go, we know where we are. We can really pinpoint those specific aspects of our current job that doesn't align with what we want for ourselves and what we want in our future. And it could be the role, could be the company, could be the company culture, it could be the industry itself, right? Like maybe you love continuous learning, challenging projects, but you're no longer getting to work on projects or cross-functionally with other teams like you maybe once used to. Maybe your role is a little bit more siloed. Now, if that's the case, we might need to find a role that offers continual learning with cutting edge technology or the ability to work cross-functionally on other projects, or at least to volunteer for that type of thing if that's something that you're really enjoying.
Yeah, absolutely. The final step for this is really to find someone to help you out, right? It's hard. It is really hard if you know where you want to go, you know where you're at is not it, and you're not sure where to go from there, right? Well, I've spoken to thousands and thousands. Jack and I both have spoken to thousands and thousands of executives, professionals, high achievers, students, everyone at all stages of all different levels of professional. And the one thing that is in common with where you are versus where everyone else is that everyone is really good at doing their job and not everyone is really good at figuring out how to get to the next step. It's because they don't teach you that in your job, right? They teach you how to do your job really good, or they teach you how to get your degree in school. And then they send you to one meeting with a guidance counselor who gives you a resume template and they say, good luck, right? And so no one really understands exactly how to get from where you are to where you want to go and to figure out that gap. And that's why hiring a resume writer or a career coach or talking with someone who's an expert in that is really going to help you out so that you aren't going to waste all of that time. And of course, obviously, we love doing that. That's what we're experts in. We are kind of nerds about it. We really, really love it. And we're kind of gifted in it, right? We have this really unique ability to see where you are and where you want to go and the path forward. We are booking complimentary career success sessions right now. We would love to be able to talk to you for free. When you do book a call, you talk to either myself or to Jack, and you can book those at www.optimizedcareers.com. But that's from here nor there. If you don't want to work with anyone, we have plenty of free resources on YouTube, this podcast, TikTok, everywhere. So definitely get some help, figure out a way to get there, and go find a career that aligns with you. Before we wrap it up, I want to really touch on something that's super important. When you are dealing with a career misalignment or burnout, the one thing that's super important is maintaining a state of well being in your mental health. When you are burning out, when you are in a job that no longer feels like it's an alignment for you, it feels like you are going in and clocking in and out, and it feels like hell on earth, doesn't feel like you're valued, doesn't feel like you're aligned. It can really take a toll on your mental health and your mindset. Mental health is as important to prioritize as physical health. Some common signs of a mental health issue in the workplace are persistent stress, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed. We absolutely encourage you to be open in discussing mental health issues without fear of stigma or judgment. If you need someone to talk to, please book one of those free consultations with myself or Jack. We absolutely will be a place with no judgment. Check with HR or your EAP, it's an employee assistant program, or contact a licensed professional, absolutely a therapist, in order to talk about your mental health if you are going through this. Seeking help is a sign of strength. It absolutely is. We have talked to thousands and thousands of professionals, and the one thing that keeps coming back is that the most intelligent, growth minded people are the ones that ask for help. So if you are struggling with this and you ask for help, that means that you are choosing to prioritize yourself, which in turn helps the people around you. We get it. When you're feeling burnt out, adding another thing can feel really exhausting and soul crushing. Like your head might pop from all this pressure that you're carrying internally, but there are a lot of ways to release that tension. Acknowledging the situation, accepting the situation, and using self-talk to help in real time can absolutely help. Like, okay, this situation sucks. My body's carrying a lot of stress. I can only do one thing today to help me manage the stress. I'm going to take a 10-minute walk between meetings in order to replace this mindless scrolling of social media. I'm going to do that today. It's going to help me feel better. It's going to help me release some of the stress I'm carrying. If that's all I do today, I'm going to be proud of myself. Jack, once people feel better, we know that they can start making a plan, right? And a lot of times it's awareness first is the hardest battle. What are some ways that they can start making a plan once they're aware that they might be in this situation?
I think it's important to value that first step, awareness, because so often, even for myself, I will skip over the importance of the awareness because the awareness has allowed me to make change. So I am so grateful for every ounce of awareness. But after we have that, start with small changes, such as regular breaks, maybe finding a new hobby, something to get passionate about, something to create potential confidence spillover, which is a thing, or changing your routine, adding in something that is going to help alleviate that stress. But when we're taking care of our body, how do we do that? Well, let's increase our water intake. Let's get some regular exercise. Make sure if you are looking to do the regular exercise that you're in a state to be able to do it. If not, go see a physician, making sure that you're ready and able to start that exercise routine. But sleep, and rest as much as you can. It is so important because when we're not sleeping, all of our other faculties are diminished. Make sure that you're also seeking professional help, like support groups, talking to a mentor, friends if they're willing, family members. This is very, very important to have that support in your corner. But it all comes back to your self-care. All of this is part of your self-care and setting boundaries that help set you up to be a better version of you tomorrow. Maybe you decide not to answer emails after you leave the office, something as simple as that. Or we're turning off our notifications at the end of our day or when we decide to start dinner. And then until the next day, those notifications are off. We need to find ways to decompress after our shifts. These are some actionable ways to implement in your life, ways that we've implemented for ourselves and other clients to be able to help them gain a little bit more control over those boundaries that they're looking to kind of enable a little bit extra work-life harmony.
Absolutely. For me, after burning out twice, both in corporate and in my business, I realized I couldn't quit my business. I'm absolutely aligned in what I do in this business. I love helping people. But for me, I was carrying some limiting beliefs. I have to do it all. It's all on me. Can't ask for help. I have to be on 16 hours a day. I have to work, right? All of this stuff. And for me, some of the things that I implemented for myself that really helped me out was one, I had a great support system. So having Jack that was there to help me out, right? Yep, pat yourself on the back. That was really important, right? But the part of the support that was really important was the awareness part, right? Not only was I aware of my triggers of getting into that prolonged stress state, but I keyed him in on it too, right? Here's where I get into that high stress state. Here's how I get into it. Here's when I get into it. Please help keep me accountable. Drag me out of the office if I'm in there past a certain amount of time, right? And I will know that you're doing it out of love, right? So that was a big thing. Another thing that was really helpful for me was I changed my exercise, my diet routine. That was a big thing. I also changed my relationship to it too. So instead of feeling like exercise was a punishment, it was more so like this is what I'm doing in order to help. This is what I get to do for me, right? And then changing my routine around, right? And setting some boundaries around some of the things that Jack mentioned. I don't have notifications for a lot of my apps anymore. So I have to go into those apps if I want to see what my emails or whatever they are. And I don't go back into the office after I leave it, right? And I work from home, so that's a little bit more difficult to work at an office and you leave it, that makes more sense, right? So these are some things that has helped me that were big problems for me at the time. And so having that awareness piece and finding out what some of your triggers are for those stress cycles are going to be your first key. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the things in the comments that might be triggering a prolonged stress cycle for you? We'd love to come back and maybe offer some suggestions on how you can potentially get out of that. And if you are misaligned in your career, if this is not it for you, maybe it was at one time like it was for me, and then it isn't anymore, and you need help, let us know. We offer those free consultations. We would love to talk to you about where you are in your career, where you're wanting to go, what values are important to you, and where you can get them fulfilled, right? You can book your free consultation at www.optimizecareers.com, and we would love to chat with you. Make sure to come back next week where you will get another episode with me and Jack at the Career Advancement Academy podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast and leave us a 5-star review. We will see you next week.